Hi guys, for the next one on the bench I've decided I quite fancied doing a bike. I was a bit torn between doing a TIE fighter or a motorbike, and I have actually got a TIE fighter I want to do, but I've got a specific idea of what I want to do with that, which is not going to be as straightforward as just building the model. So I decided I would do a bike, and I decided I would do something a little bit more fun than the typically super accurate Tamiya kits. So I'm going to go with this Revell Crusader, and these kits, for those who haven't seen them before, they did a series of them a few years ago. This is a sort of new boxing, and I believe this is the only one that you can actually get new now. But they did do a series of them, and they are customisable choppers. American chopper style choppers, hardtail frame, Harley Evo type engine, raked out forks, and you get different exhaust pipes, tanks, different wheels, and that kind of thing, as you can see on the box here. So it's a big chunky box with details, replicated cover art on the sides, and then down here it shows you the sort of variants that you can make, and you've got different air cleaner covers and different final drive pulley covers and various bits and pieces. And the different kits came with different shaped alloy wheels as well, but I think I'll be using the spoked wheels on this one. So we'll dig into the kit. And the very first thing you notice with this kit is chrome. There's chrome everywhere. You know, if you could actually catch something from exposure to kit chrome, then you would be in intensive care after opening one of these boxes. So what I'm going to do, as is the norm, is I'm going to get these open, and then I'm going to scoot in close and give you a close-up review of the sprues. So we'll take a look at the decal sheet that comes with the kit first of all. You get some really nice custom decals, such as these skull designs for the Crusader tank, and a cross, and a shield and sword, which is obviously a play on the whole sort of Knights Crusader thing. Then you get some nice kind of tribal patterns as alternatives for the tanks, and then a couple of number plates, a California one and one that just says Crusader, which are quite nice. They're really nice decals, nice and bright. I don't know how well they'll perform on the kit yet, but we'll see. And the protective paper is actually quite good as well, because it's sort of shiny on one side, smooth on the other, and really, really thick, unlike your typical tracing paper that you get. So nice decals. And then the instructions are A4 format, much like your sort of Airfix, Revell, Tamiya, or what have you, but in a booklet format. And it gives you a parts list, which is a little bit unusual. It actually gives you a number, presumably a sprue number, and then the actual part name, which is quite interesting. It's not something I've seen in a kit before. I've seen a sort of sprue breakdown, and I do like those kits that show the sprue breakdown, so you can do a quick visual check and see if there's anything missing or what have you. So we've got a long list of the parts and the descriptions, and I think that's quite nice for somebody who's unfamiliar with the part names of a vehicle and wants to know them. And then the build is just your typical step-by-step panels, and shows the assembly procedure. And this one actually shows that you can assemble the frame before you fit the engine to it, which is quite nice. Although looking at this, it looks like the forks have to fit in, sandwich into the frame first, so I'm going to have to look to see if I can maybe fit that in such a manner that I don't glue the front section until I put the forks in later, but we'll see how that goes. It shows you the two variants up here, and you can mix and match. You don't have to do either one exactly as they show. And then the rest of the instructions are pretty standard fare, panel by panel, showing section by section. and then the back page, as is the norm, shows your decal placement for the two different variants. And again, because of the type of kit this is, because of the way it's designed, you can mix and match. You don't have to do it as it appears on here. So we'll have a look at the sprues now. So we'll begin with the white sprues, and the first bag contains 2 sprues which hold a frame half each, and it's a nice thick frame, nice and cleanly moulded, but some seam lines, some very obvious seam lines that are going to need cleaning up. And but it should make a nice rigid platform. It's very, very thick and quite hard white plastic, this one, so it should make a good rigid frame. And obviously this provides the bulk of the support, unlike a lot of bike kits where the rest of the components, once fitted in, assist with the support of it. So we've got 2 of those, as you can see, a right and a left hand side, both quite nice and clean. As I say, some seam lines to clean up. You've got a rear caliper moulded into the frame on the right hand side, which is obviously something you'll need to remember to paint up accordingly at the time. So that's those 2. We'll pop those back in their bag and to the side. Next up, in the second bag, we've got, if I can untangle these, we have got a part that's dropped off, I believe, somewhere, which I'll have to try and find in a moment. But first of all, we've got a rear mudguard, or fender, as it were. Very custom style, comes to a point down there with a little cutout for part of the frame, or that's probably for the chain run. And then we've got a seat here with a Maltese cross type design and a flame logo on, which is quite nice. So that, I guess you could apply a decal to that, but you could also pick that out in paint quite easily. So a nice little sort of sprung saddle style thing. A tiny little sprue on its own, which has the front mudguard or fender, which is just a very straightforward one. And moulded in one piece, very cleanly moulded. No particularly nasty marks. An odd little, I don't know if that's some kind of product code or something under there, but I've not seen that before. That looks like it's actually stamped on, very strange. And then on this sprue here, we've got a battery here, a primary drive belt, which is very, very crudely moulded, including the drive sprocket at the back here. For anyone that's unfamiliar with Harley-Davidson V-twin, big V-twin engines, they still use a separate gearbox. So they have a primary drive chain or belt which drives, this takes the drive from the engine to the gearbox, and this larger sprocket drives the gearbox, and then the drive sprocket comes off this to the rear wheel. And they're what's called non-unit construction. Unit construction are the ones, modern Japanese bikes are all unit construction, where the engine and gearbox are made as one complete unit and built into one big aluminium box effectively. So we have a petrol tank or gas tank here. This is a sort of elongated peanut type tank, and again all very cleanly moulded and nicely moulded as one piece, so that this bit fits underneath. It's got a slot for the frame rail to sit over the top of the frame rail, but that means there's no seams to clean up on here, which is nice. Again, very cleanly moulded, no unpleasant seam lines, and no visible sort of ejector pin marks or sink marks to clean up, which is good. And then here we've got the alternative petrol tank, which is like a little stubby peanut tank. And I have to say, this longer one, doesn't have the downward curve that is is sort of demonstrated here. This has a little bit of an underside curve. That one's not so apparent, but it is the right kind of length. But by the by, so this is like your typical short peanut type tank that you would see on American custom choppers. Somewhere is another part that came off this sprue. I did hear something fall, but infuriatingly I'm not sure what it is or where it is. Before we start on the chrome sprues, we'll look at the clear parts, which is 2 headlight lenses, and I don't know if that means you get 2 different headlight bowls, but you get 2 headlight lenses, which is quite nice if it leaves you a spare one. They'll come in handy for something, certainly. And then 2 tyres, which are like your typical motorbike kit. They're vinyl tyres. You've got a very wide flat profile rear and a very skinny standard profile front. They're quite a hard vinyl with a fairly realistic tread. Very, very shiny, so they'll need a sand to make them look more realistic. And there's no lettering at all on the tyres. They're just generic brand tyres. So we'll start with the chrome sprues. And on the very first one, we have the engine halves. And it's a Harley-Davidson Evo style V-twin engine. Pretty much in every aspect of its layout. As you can see if you're familiar with them. Hopefully you'll be able to see this well enough, because obviously it's very reflective, being very chrome. And then up here we've got the pushrod tubes, which I might leave chromed, but we'll see. And then we've got various components. We've got the brake caliper up here. We've got the rocker covers that go on top of the cylinder head. This, I believe, is the cover for the battery tray, which goes under the seat, I think, but I'm not 100% sure yet. Then we've got a couple of grips with the levers attached, and then down here we've got some very shiny brake discs. So that's chrome sprue number 1. And chrome sprue number 2, we have exhaust pipes. This is the rear side, and as you can see, they are hollowed out on the rear. So that I shall probably fill so I can re-profile them. And that's on the front side. You can see that these are custom shaped exhaust pipes. So they flow with each other, and you've got a sort of a low flowing one front and rear there, and one that's a bit more upswept front and rear there, and you can choose between those 2 options. Chrome sprue number 3 are the standard spoked wheels. We've got 2 skinny ones that make up the front wheel, 2 thick ones that make up the rear wheel. Again, very shiny, good thick chrome plating, and they actually look quite nice, those, I've got to be honest. As compared to some chrome plated spoked wheels I've seen on some kits before, these are quite nicely made, fairly realistic. So again, nicely made, and the sprue gates designed so that they go around the rim, which is the bit that's going to be covered by the tyre, which is a nice little touch. So that means if you do want to leave these entirely chrome, then you don't have to worry about having to touch up any spots on the outside of the wheel, which is a nice little extra. Chrome sprue number 5, we have the alternative alloy wheels in an unusual spoked design. These are both one piece, a big fat one for the rear and a skinny larger one for the front. And again, very nicely chrome plated, and again the sprue gates are on the sides so that they'll be hidden by the tyres, which is a nice little touch. Then down here we have a choice of 2 different air cleaners. You've got a Maltese Cross type one, and you've got a Skull type one there, both nicely chromed, nice detail. And then you've got the primary drive covers, and again you can mix and match these, but obviously they designed the Skull one to go with the Skull air cleaner, and the Maltese Cross one to go with the Maltese Cross air cleaner. On this sprue we've got the entire front fork assembly, which is one piece, which is all chromed, and unfortunately the sprue attachment points are right on the sliding chrome tube part that if you're going to paint anything on these, it's going to be the fork lowers. So that's a real shame, because it means that if you wanted to keep those chrome, then you'll have to find some means of touching up the spots where you cut that off the sprue, off the runners. So that's all one piece, and that also means that this needs to be fitted into the frame as it's clamped together, because unlike the Tamiya kits where you'd have a screw that goes down through this central pivot, this is one piece. Although I guess what you could do is cut that out, drill it, and either use a long screw or a rod and put it in after. So that's a possibility. I might look at that, who knows. And I don't want to go to too much trouble with this kit particularly, but it's a possibility. And then over here we've got the handlebars, which are like half apes. So very nicely moulded with the risers moulded on as well. Number 6, we have got these pieces. Right, yes, I think this is the oil tank. So these will be the end caps, and this is the actual tube that forms the oil tank. And they'll go together, and then these caps will go on either end, of course, forming the seal for the cylinder accordingly. And then down here you've got the foot pegs, all cast in chrome with the brake and gear shift lever respectively. And the final sprue in the box is the final drive chain, all chrome plated. This is the back plate for the primary drive assembly, which fits on, and then the final drive chain will go onto there and then to the back wheel. We've got a rear light and number plate hanger here. So this is one of the ones that pokes out to the side, so it's one of those cool American style ones where the number plate hangs off the side. We've got a headlight bucket, torpedo type chrome headlight bucket, which is very nice. And then some more chrome parts which I believe form part of the gearbox assembly. And then a different pair of handlebars with thicker hand grips. So you've got an option of whether to put the thin or thick hand grips on, which is quite nice. And then here, this will be the side stand down here, as you can see, all very shiny, all is really thick chrome, it's very good chrome. That said, the first thing that I will be doing for the bulk of this is throwing it in a bleach bath, and I will be bleaching all of the chrome off so that I've got bare plastic to start with and work with. I can see this is going to be that white plastic with the sort of resinous coating on top, but we'll see how that goes. And one or two of the bits I'm probably actually going to leave chrome, like the headlight bucket and a couple of bits and pieces. We'll see, but I'm going to have a look through the instructions, see which bits I want to strip and repaint, and then I'll be throwing them in a bleach bath, and then it's clean up and prep ready for primer. So that's where we're at the moment. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.